But our top story tonight, the vexed Ayodhya land dispute over a Babri Masjid and a Ram Janmabhoomi has been raging for years. Today, the Supreme Court stepped in and made an unprecedented offer. The Chief Justice of India said he or any of the other judges are ready to mediate in the dispute that has lasted for 68 years now, but would prefer an out-of-court settlement. While the petitioner Subramanian Swamy of the BJP welcomed the offer, the Babri Masjid Action Committee says the court must give its verdict.
The most divisive dispute raging on for years. A watershed moment in Hindu-Muslim polarization. The Ayodhya Ram Mandir Babri Masjid dispute. After years of being mired in disputes, negotiations and legal cases, the issue is all set for a final mediation by a Supreme Court judge.
In a crucial development today, the Supreme Court suggested that all the parties involved in the Ayodhya land dispute must sit together and try to reach an amicable solution. But what is most important is, will all parties consent? Keeping in mind the huge trust deficit which has always been present between the litigating parties.
Supreme Court, in its observation, made it clear that the issue was a sentimental and religious one, and it should be discussed between the two parties. The court asked petitioner Subramanian Swamy to consult all parties and inform about the decision on March 31st. Swamy will have to explore all possibilities of negotiation to reach a settlement.
हम समझौता करने के लिए तैयार हैं। मस्जिद बने, मंदिर बने, उसके अलग अलग जगह हैं। एक के प्राणी प्रतिष्ठा के कारण राम जाम पैदा हुए, वही है, उसको बदल नहीं सकते। और मस्जिद तो कहीं भी बना सकते हैं, सड़क में भी नमाज पढ़ते हैं मुसलमान।
उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री जी की अभी तक जो का इतिहास रहा है, उसमें वो क्या लाइन लेते हैं, इस पर निर्भर करेगा, क्योंकि इस मुद्दे को यदि नहीं संभाला गया तो 1992 की परिस्थितियां फिर बनेंगी।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट खुद ये कह रहा है कि बड़ा हिसास मसला है, ये बड़ा इसमें नाजुक मसला है, तो भाई आप जब 3 तलाक का मसला हियर कर रहे हैं तो आप उसी के साथ ये मसले को भी हियर करिए।
In the past, at least 9 attempts have been made to arrive at a negotiated settlement on the Ayodhya issue. All of them have failed to yield any result. And this time, it might turn out futile again, as parties seem to be failing to agree.
हम तो मध्यस्थता के लिए कल ही तैयार हैं। मध्यस्थता तो हम हमेशा चाहते हैं। हमारी सरकार ये चाहती है कि पहले कोई भी डिस्प्यूट जो है, हम तो इसको मध्यस्थता को और भी एनकरेज कर रहे हैं। चाहे लिटिगेशन होने के बाद मीडिएशन हो, मीडिएशन को जो हमारी सरकार जो है हमेशा एनकरेज करती है।
कोर्ट को हमें पहले तो ये बताना है कि प्राइवेट नेगोशिएशन पॉसिबल नहीं है।
मुझे पूरा भरोसा है कि मुस्लिम भाई सामाजिक समरसता में एक उदाहरण पेश करें और करेंगे, क्योंकि कोर्ट ने भी उनसे यही उम्मीद की।
My view, this can be solved by amicable negotiation or through court only. BJP will never let this issue die down.
The issue, if handled properly, could have sealed friendly relations between the two communities, but it instead ended up widening the divide. The latest judicial intervention will hopefully bridge this gap between the two communities. Bureau Report, India Today.
And the newly elected Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath welcomed the Supreme Court observation on the Ram Temple. Listen into what he said today.
माननीय न्यायालय ने जो फैसला दिया है वह स्वागत योग्य है और मुझे लगता है कि जितना हो सकता था उतना बहुत ठोस फैसला दिया है। हम उसका स्वागत करते हैं। मुझे लगता है दोनों पक्षों को बैठ करके विवाद के समाधान के लिए एक रास्ता निकालना चाहिए। सरकार से जो सहयोग लोग चाहेंगे हम लोग उसमें सहयोग करेंगे।
Let me raise the big questions then here on the news today. Is an out-of-court settlement possible on the Ayodhya dispute? Can a court really mediate on what is seen as a matter of faith by one side? Will the Ayodhya issue continue to divide Hindus and Muslims? Is an Ayodhya solution possible only with a give-and-take spirit by both sides? Should the Supreme Court wait for talks before delivering an Ayodhya verdict? Is it running away from its responsibility? Those are the questions. And joining me on my face-off today, the BJP leader Dr. Subramanian Swamy, who's been one of the petitioners in the court, and also joining me Owaisi of the MIM, its member of parliament from Hyderabad and a member of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board as well. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want to ask both of you the big question. After what the Supreme Court said today, has the possibility of an out-of-court settlement to the Ayodhya dispute brightened? And if so, what is the settlement? I want to understand that. What is the possible out-of-court settlement? You first, Dr. Swamy, given the frozen positions of both sides, what's the potential out-of-court settlement to Ayodhya?
Well, I would say that to work a settlement, we have to examine which is flexible, which is rigid. The masjid can be built anywhere. That's the flexibility. There's no specific place. In fact, masjid is only for reading namaz, and they can read namaz even on the street. So therefore, a masjid can be shifted. And in most countries, from Iran to Saudi Arabia, they shift masjids. They even demolish masjids. So first of all, that flexibility the Muslim community has. As far as the Hindu community is concerned, the place where Ram is born is a faith, and that faith of course has been upheld by the Allahabad High Court. But we can't have a Ram Janmabhoomi Mandir anywhere else except that place. So I think the ideal arrangement would be that across the Saroo River, Muslims build a
So you're saying basically the compromise has to be made by Muslims, that Muslims have to agree that the masjid will be built on the other side of the Saroo River. There will be no change in the position of the Hindus and the Ram Janmabhoomi Trust that the mandir has to be built on a particular site. Now, I don't know whether that is acceptable to you, Mr. Owaisi. This is what Dr. Swamy is saying, that the compromise, the gesture has to come from the Muslim community, because according to Dr. Swamy, the fact that the mandir must be built on the Ram Janmabhoomi Sthan is a matter of faith. It's not about a title dispute effectively. Your response?
Well, Mr. Swamy might be learned in other matters, but I don't need to learn Islamic jurisprudence from him. And what happens in Saudi Arabia and Iran, maybe Mr. Swamy can take his grievance to Iran and Saudi Arabia. But as far as I am concerned, masjid is a place which will be masjid right till the world ends. There can be no compromise on that, because it is a criminal action which demolished the masjid. And Mr. Swamy knows very well that earlier 7 such attempts were made, and those attempts were failed not because of the intransigence on the part of the Muslim Personal Law Board, but because of stubbornness and bigotry, which you have just now seen what Mr. Swamy has said. So the Personal Law Board is very clear. The working committee resolution says that we will abide by the Supreme Court judgment. We want the Supreme Court to hear it on a day-to-day basis. And I request Mr. Swamy again, please tell Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and you are the member of Executive Committee of your party, file a petition in Supreme Court saying that if triple talaq can be heard during summer holidays, let this case be heard during summer holidays without a break. Till August, the judgment will come. What is stopping Mr. Swamy and the Modi government from filing a simple petition in Supreme Court asking for day-to-day hearing along with the 93 contempt petition? If the Supreme Court can sit in summer holidays and hear the triple talaq, why not this? And last point, Rajdeep, the Allahabad High Court judgment is wrong judgment, because judgments cannot be given on the basis of astha. It was a title suit. Unfortunately, the Allahabad judgment turned it into a partition suit. Our main fight is of title, and that will be decided by the Supreme Court, not on the basis of astha.
I'm going to come to title versus faith in a moment, but first, Dr. Swamy, you want to respond to what Mr. Owaisi is saying? Why not have a day-to-day hearing and settle it by the court? I'm presuming that Mr. Owaisi is saying he will accept whatever the court judgment is. Am I correct, Mr. Owaisi? You will accept whatever the court judgment is, whether it is for you or against. Am I right? You will accept the judgment even if it's an adverse judgment.
Rajdeep, the Muslim, yes, the Muslim Personal Law Board in its working committee has set this resolution.
Okay, then let Dr. Swamy respond to that.
I am stating the position of All India Muslim Personal Law Board.
Let Dr. Swamy, why not a day-to-day hearing then? Let's settle it in the courts. Why are you not so keen for a day-to-day hearing?
This is the problem with you, Rajdeep, you jump to conclusions. My petition today which came up was exactly this. There should be a day-to-day hearing. And the court said, well, this is a very sensitive matter, why don't you try and work a compromise? I said, I have talked to various people, including Mr. Owaisi, who say, no, this is something we can't do it bilaterally, let the Supreme Court be there. So the other proposal that has come for the first time is that the mediation will be done by a sitting judge of the Supreme Court. I don't know whether Mr. Owaisi will accept that and the other Muslim leaders will accept that.
Will you accept that? Mr. Owaisi, will you accept that?
March,
will you accept that? Sure. Will you accept that mediation by a Supreme Court judge, Mr. Owaisi?
Well, I would say, why can't the Supreme Court hear it on day-to-day basis? Even if it's mediation, which I don't know what Personal Law Board, I am stating to the position taken by Personal Law Board as a member. If the Supreme Court can hear it on day-to-day basis, what is wrong in that?
Mediation.
Let Mr. Swamy go and impress upon Mr. Modi. Rajdeep, mediation or not, the important point is the Supreme Court is seized of the matter. Let them hear it on day-to-day basis. If the Supreme Court can hear triple talaq during summer vacation, why not this issue? If the Supreme Court is accepting the sensitive issue for both the parties, let the Supreme Court hear it in summer vacation. Who's stopping the Supreme Court? We are ready.
But can I come to the
government of India take a clear-cut stand?
You made your position clear, but I want to understand, and this is critical to this entire vexed issue over the years, faith versus a title dispute, or faith versus law, some would say. And Dr. Swamy, today the court says it's an issue of sentiment religion. And therefore it appeared that the court was reluctant to do what Mr. Owaisi is saying, have a day-to-day hearing, or what you claim you would like the court to do. They don't want to get into this issue as far as possible. They would prefer if it is done by the two sides amicably. I want to understand this. Do you believe that this can be an issue of sentiment, and therefore it is only the sentiment of the Hindu community? What about the sentiment of the Muslim community?
Now, you see, there's a new development of the last 2 years. I had filed a writ petition saying that my fundamental rights are being affected because I'm not able to worship at the Ram temple because there's a makeshift temple and there are all kinds of restrictions, and how long is this going to go? And therefore, there should be a day-to-day hearing, and this matter should be settled. So that's how the whole thing came, and this issue of Astha came, I think, and Owaisi is right. The Allahabad High Court gave the central dome of the Babri Masjid to the Ram Lala petitioners, saying that this is a question of Astha, and therefore Ram everybody believes that Ram was born in the central dome, where the central domes of the Babri Masjid once stood. Now, the issue is that as far as the title question is concerned, the whole argument of the Muslim I think Sunni Waqf board is that adverse possession is ours. They admit that the land originally belonged to the Hindus, but then they took it over, and for 300 years they have kept it, so by adverse possession comes to them. Adverse possession is a valid law only if there was no objection, but the Hindus protested every year for 300 years. So that's a question of argument.
Yes.
I am only saying, is there a room? After all, you want a masjid. There is nothing special about building a masjid in Ram Janmabhoomi. You can build it next to Ram Janmabhoomi. Why can't you be reasonable and accept that?
Okay, that's,
what is so special about the masjid in the exact spot
sir,
where it was before?
It's coming to a question of competitive sentiment at one level as well. Because Mr. Owaisi, if what Dr. Swamy is saying, that I am willing to reach out to you and ensure that a masjid is built either on the other side of the Saryu or in the 2.77 acres itself, let me ask both of you, is it not large enough to build both a mandir and a masjid? Is that not possible, Mr. Owaisi? 2.77 acres. Let the Garbhagriha be where the Ram Janmabhoomi is built, some say, and a masjid next door. Is that possible? Or do you believe fundamentally this is an issue of title and therefore it cannot be seen as a matter of any kind of religious faith?
Rajdeep, what you and Mr. Swamy are telling me is that either take it or we'll kick you out. You know, this is a test of India's secularism. This is a test of our rule of law. This is a test of our diversity. This is a test of whether justice will be done or not. This is the test. Faith is, I don't know how can faith be part of this. A Supreme Court or courts of law should decide on faith. I mean, can what happened 14 lakh years ago, can a court decide that? Under what basis? The courts are there to decide on the basis of the documents and law. And demolition of Babri Masjid was a criminal act. And it is not adverse possession. Mr. Swamy is deliberately misguiding the whole nation. He has not read the judgment. He has not read the papers which has been filed by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. It is a question of title and their records are there. You know, but for the demolition, but for the entry of all those what happened in 1948 and opening of gates. And please remember, Mr. Swamy on record has condemned the demolition of Babri Masjid, where in Hyderabad, in Medina Education Center. At that time, Mr. Swamy was very close to the then Congress government. And now Mr. Swamy, according to his political convenience, has changed his position. That I leave it to him. No, but I am of the opinion that let the Supreme Court decide. Two wrongs don't make a right. And I will not accept a masjid. If the land belongs to me, I will reconstruct the masjid. If the land does not belong to you, why should I construct a masjid?
You know, the point, Dr. Swamy, the issue of faith, as a law student myself, is a very tricky issue. Are we going to go by faith as to what happened 400, 500 years ago, and how far will we go back? It will open the floodgates. And B, Mr. Owaisi has a point. A criminal act was committed on December 6, 1992, when the masjid itself was demolished. Now, a court needs to look at that. A court needs to look at what happened on December 6, 1992, and the issue of faith itself is an extremely tricky issue.
Just let me make an intervention here.
Yes.
First of all, this titles that he claims was rejected by the Allahabad High Court, which included one Muslim judge. Okay, so they in fact the whole argument of the Sunni Waqf board was rubbished by the Allahabad High Court. The issue was even with this title, now he says he has got a chance in the Supreme Court. Fine, let him try it, I have no problem. The question is, really boils down to this. If you have to argue this matter on a day-to-day basis, that is what I came originally for. This is a proposal of the Supreme Court. Why don't you have a settlement? And I said bilateral settlement is impossible. Then they said, okay. Then the judge said, I myself, the Chief Justice said, I myself am ready to mediate. I said, no, any Supreme Court judge you nominate is good enough for us. Now, question of faith is there all over the world. After all, the Christ, where Christ was born, was a dream of the mother of the king of Italy called Constantine. And there is no proof whatsoever that he was born there. But it is accepted.
Sir.
And same thing with Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Muslims believe that Muhammad went to heaven from there. So their faith is all over. And the question is, how will you respect it? This Babri Masjid has no faith at all. There is nothing there. So it is a place to read namaz. And you can read namaz anywhere. So you read it across the river.
Today it will be seen as a sign of Hindu triumphalism and not necessarily secularism if you insist that the mandir must be built there, which is why I am asking both of you. And I will ask you this, Mr. Owaisi. On the other hand, it could be seen as a grand gesture that might bring communities together. So it either could be seen as a sign of Hindu triumphalism or a sign of two communities coming together. And I ask both of you in conclusion, is there not space for a masjid and a mandir to be built side by side? Make it a symbol of India's interfaith dialogue, Mr. Owaisi. Why see it as pitting Hindu versus Muslim?
Well, why don't we make a gesture of forgiving Nathuram Godse? Why don't we make a gesture of forgiving what happened to Sikhs in 1984?
No,
Why
let's
don't
not
we
go
make a
back in
guess at
time.
what happened
Let's
in
not
Gujarat?
go back in time. I'm asking
if the
today.
land belongs to me based on title, no, I'm not, no, listen to me. You have to remember what happened in time so that you don't commit mistakes in future. It was a criminal act, wanton criminal act of demolition of Babri Masjid. If the land belongs to me on the basis of title, I will reconstruct my masjid again, inshallah. That is what I have to say. What is this? Side by side. It was a masjid. How did those Ram and Lakshman deities appear in the dead of night? How did it happen? A fire was there. Who opened the locks? If the demolition had not taken place 6th of December, would Mr. Swamy have gone to the court, Supreme Court? No. Why isn't Mr. Swamy talking about a demolition? Yes, Mr. Swamy, please
Quick
go
respond.
ahead.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's a fact that mob demolished the Babri Masjid, but it's also a fact that a general of the Babar demolished a temple. According to the Archaeological Survey of India, which had B.B. Lal and K. Muhammad, who gave this report to the Allahabad High Court.
Sir, I'm going to ask
where do we draw the line?
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask, that's precisely, gentlemen, I'm going to make one last attempt.
Absolutely
I'm going to make one last attempt to mediate.
Absolutely misleading.
No, I'm going to make one last attempt to act as mediator by saying that why can this not become a symbol of interfaith harmony? Why is it not possible for Dr. Swamy and Mr. Owaisi to sit across a table like you are sitting on this program and look for a middle ground? Am I to understand that the positions are so frozen in time, Mr. Owaisi, that I am barking up the wrong tree when I call for interfaith harmony and making the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid site a symbol of that harmony? Not possible, Mr. Owaisi? Is it not possible at all?
Interfaith harmony will happen only when justice is done and the perpetrators of demolition are sentenced.
That's
they
another
are being
issue.
given Padma Vibhushan. The title should be decided not on the basis of Astha. No, it is part and parcel of interfaith harmony you're talking about. Why do you want to shove this argument of yours on me? You are basically saying that here India has turned into a majoritarian democracy. Muslims are no more the first-class citizens. You are living as tenants. You are living on what we throw to you, and take it or leave it.
I didn't say that,
will never happen. I have full confidence in the judicial system. Yes, you, by innuendos, you are using that. When you say harmony, what harmony you want? You want to
yes.
sanction? Do you want to a demolition which took place, and you say harmony? How can harmony happen when a criminal act has happened?
I will give you 10 seconds, Dr. Swamy, then in the end to respond. Given what I'm hearing from Mr. Owaisi, it appears that the only option is to go through that day-to-day hearing to wait for a final verdict from the court. Out-of-court settlement seems out of place given the frozen positions.
Well, I'm ready for that.
You're ready for that? So day-to-day hearing is what you're ready?
Well, I don't know, but I'm ready for a day-to-day hearing. But let me say one thing.
Maybe the Supreme Court doesn't want to decide. You are putting the Supreme Court in a difficult position.
No. In reply, no. I am not putting the Supreme Court in any difficult position. This is a very wise Chief Justice. There's no problem. The question is, if Mr. Owaisi says that after what happened in 1992, how can the Muslims put up with it? I would say after what Babur did to that site through his general Mir Baqi, I think it's surprising that the Hindus have put up with it for 300 years.
And my worry as an Indian living in 2017 is, why do we have to go back to 1526 to seek some kind of vengeance for what happened almost 500 years ago? Why can we not look ahead? There are those
Why
who,
1992?
There are those, of course, who suggest forget about Mandir Masjid, build a grand hospital where Hindus and Muslims are treated for free. May do that. Mr. Owaisi, Dr. Swamy, the future will bless you. No, Dr. Swamy. No, don't be so dismissive. Yes,
no,
Mr. Owaisi.
No.
Why not?
Rajdeep, rule of law should prevail. Constitution should prevail. Let the courts of law give the final verdict. We are living in independent India. I am not a spokesperson of Babur, or Mr. Swamy is not a spokesperson of what happened 11 lakh years ago. If that is the case, Mr. Swamy should open a DNA shop and give everyone certificates of what happened 12 lakh years ago. I am saying in an independent India where rule of law should prevail, a criminal act happened, and I'm saying that the Supreme Court should hear it on the basis of how they are hearing triple talaq in summer vacation. Let them hear it on day-to-day basis, along with the 93 contempt petition.
Build a hospital.
That also must be heard
Gentlemen, build
and
a
decided.
hospital. The future generation will bless both of you.
One short intervention.
No, one short
intervention.
Yes,
If the Supreme Court says the land belongs to me,
One short
I will build a
intervention.
masjid.
Short
If the land does
intervention,
not
Dr.
belong to
Swamy.
me, will abide by Supreme Court
Dr.
judgment.
Swamy, very quick intervention, yes.
The Supreme Court has already in 1994 allowed a temple to function there, and prayers are going on there. Pilgrims are coming there. It's impossible now to change that situation.
Okay, on that point, it appears both of you have very strong positions, which makes it very difficult to see how an out-of-court settlement can be achieved. But gentlemen, as always, thank you very much for joining us and giving me your positions. Thank you very much. What's my take? Where do I stand on this issue? The concept of law above faith is central to our Republican Constitution. The Supreme Court may be worried about adjudicating on a vexed issue like the Mandir Masjid dispute in Ayodhya. But the fact is that too much blood has been spilt over the contending claims. We don't need to revisit the ghosts of the past or create more divides. Let the two parties accept the court verdict or compromise by building a mandir and masjid next to each other. Or better still, build a hospital for the poor. Let Ayodhya become a symbol of modern, not medieval India. Okay, let's turn to someone, of course, who remains central, many believe, to the entire Ram Janmabhoomi movement. The new UP Chief Minister, Yogi Adityanath's scheduled trip to the national capital and an unscheduled farewell speech in Parliament made headlines today. We bring you up to speed with how the Yogi is trying to reinvent himself as an administrator and someone who's moderate, not a rabble-rouser.
On day 3 of his stint as the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister, Yogi Adityanath headed to Delhi for a slew of important meetings in the power corridors of the capital. After a quick stopover at the Parliament, Yogi kick-started his capital sojourn with a meeting with Finance Minister. Shortly after, Yogi met the Prime Minister, the first meeting since Yogi Adityanath's swearing in on Sunday. Then, Yogi met the Home Minister, followed by a short visit to the Rashtrapati Bhavan. At 2:45, Yogi met the man widely seen as being behind his elevation to the Uttar Pradesh top job. Yogi rounded off the day with a meeting with BJP's tallest leader, L.K. Advani, now a member of the Margdarshak Mandal. But what was the reason behind the multiple meetings?
Yogi Adityanath held marathon meetings with top ministers and BJP leaders. Speculation is rife that discussions were about ministerial berth allocations in the UP cabinet. Sources told India Today that this delay in portfolio allocation is largely because this centre is likely to take a call when it comes to allotting portfolios.
After a day of marathon meetings in the capital, will the suspense over Yogi's cabinet end, and who will get the coveted home portfolio? With Shalini Lobo in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let me turn to my other big story tonight. The strike of over 4,000 resident doctors in Maharashtra entered day 2 today. The Mumbai High Court today stepped in and gave a bitter pill to the striking resident doctors in the state, saying that doctors had a duty to their work and not to strike.
These are scenes outside Sion Hospital. Patients queuing up for medical help, but no relief in sight. The strike, called by 4,000 resident doctors demanding better security, entered a second day on Tuesday, plunging entire Maharashtra into a medical crisis. The Mumbai High Court has stepped in now, reading the Right Act to doctors. The court has given hospital managements a free hand to act against doctors who don't report to work. The doctors who called the strike over recent incident of attacks in a government hospital in Dhule and Sion Hospital are not giving up yet. They say the strike will continue till the government can assure proper security. The doctors claim emergency services are not hit and senior doctors are attending to patients.
In all emergency services, all ICUs, E-ward, trauma ward, everywhere doctors are there and they are performing their duties. Senior doctors, APs, lecturers, they are there. We are taking care that it should be minimally hampered.
This protest is only related to our basic need, that is our basic security. उससे ऊपर हमारा कुछ demand नहीं है and we want to stick to that basic security. That's it.
The state government has held talks with resident doctors, but the negotiations have so far not yielded any result. The government says it will deploy nearly 500 security personnel at government hospitals by April 1 and hopes this will convince doctors to end their strike. With Virendra Gunawat in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let me pose a simple but troubling question. Should doctors go on strike? That's the simple question, but it's a complex answer because Dr. Sagar Mundada, chairman of the youth wing of the Maharashtra Indian Medical Association, is joining me from Mumbai, and Professor Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, director and VC at Dwarka Manipal Hospital, joins me from Delhi. I want to come to you, Dr. Mundada. The Supreme Court today says it is a shame on the profession. If doctors go on strike, factory men, they are unfit to be doctors. How do you respond?
Rajdeep sir, first of all I would like to say that the doctors that we are talking of here are resident doctors, are postgraduate students. So the fact that if these people are not working does not mean that the hospital is not working. Majority of the doctors, that is right from the intern doctors up till the associate professors, the lecturers, the professors, all of them are doing the duties. The emergencies are working, the wards are working. Only the trainee doctors, who are students like any other profession, have called for a mass leave. And we have to see the basic reason why they have called for a mass leave. If we see, over the last 7 days, there have been 6 attacks on resident doctors all over Maharashtra. Out of that, the Dhule incident, if I would like to remind, the doctor lost his eye. And these attacks, these assaults on doctors are not stopping. Also, this thing is not a thing of just today. It has been happening since many years, and I have been involved in all of this. So I can tell you that the government has given us assurances even in the past. We have got written assurances from the government. The Honorable Mumbai High Court had also given an order last year saying with one patient there cannot be more than 2 relatives, therefore reducing the chaos in the hospital. But the government has blatantly refused to follow those orders. If the government had followed those orders, today we would not have been in this situation.
You know, given that, and I'm playing those pictures of that horrifying incident that took place last week, Dr. Bagai, in Dhule. Look at the way in which the doctors, resident doctors, are being beaten by the patient's relatives. One of them has lost their eye. Are doctors not entitled to protest? And if they, and what other way can their resident doctor protest other than go on strike?
Yeah, hi. I think I'll just take a minute to give a macro capture view. We trained for about 20 years in active academics not to go on strike, but we are risking our own lives in treating patients. We sacrifice our youth, we sacrifice our entire life to treat patients. But I think the last thing which is expected is for any medical professional or a technician or a nurse or any healthcare or a hospital management person to be beaten up for no fault of theirs. Having said that, I think the emergency services are running and they should run. But I think we need a national law which is strictly implemented, in which any healthcare professional requires basic protection for physical safety. I would not like and I will not see any medical doctor being beaten up because the patient is either brought in critical or is in a last stage of any chronic terminal disease, or for some unforced reason some hooligans come and beat up a young doctor who's a trainee, who's a student. I think we, even as parents, would not like to see our own children, many of the people watching the program, their own students are medical students, being beaten up, and they lose an eye, they lose a limb, or they have intracranial bleeds for no fault of theirs.
I would urge the government, and I would with folded hands pray the Prime Minister of India to intervene, to issue an ordinance, to have it cleared by the Parliament that any physical or verbal violence against a male or a female doctor or a nurse or a technician be taken at the most severe and stringent level. This should actually be a criminal offence against a person who's against patients who are saving lives, and I think this is something which is completely inexcusable. I think doctors do need protection. We are the most vulnerable first line person who sees a patient in a critical stage. If a doctor has to work under fear, if a doctor has to work under apprehension that if the patient is critical he's going to be beaten up, how can the poor doctor perform? The first line defense is the junior doctors, the senior residents and the junior consultants. We have to give them adequate protection. And I think certain case examples need to be set in India in which erring relatives or any patients who take physical violence.
Right.
Why should a person be beaten up for trying to treat a patient to save his life? I think that's the point which becomes unacceptable.
I'm going to ask 30 seconds to you, Dr. Mundada. Therefore, do you believe that this ordinance is the only way forward? That you need some protection, otherwise doctors, or particularly resident doctors, young doctors, will not even work in emergency health services if they fear that they are going to be targeted by relatives.
Right, so there are two things. There are long-term objectives and short-term objectives. The long-term objective is, as Sir said, we need a central act. We already have an act in Maharashtra to protect the Doctors Protection Act 2010. Now, over the last 3 years, there have been 45 instances of attacks on resident doctors, but there has not been a single case of conviction. That is the thing. The implementation of the already present law is not there. So that needs to be done. Secondly, on a short-term basis, I think if we restrict the number of relatives, if we increase the number of doctors that are being posted in the emergencies, I think that would be the short-term solution. But in the long term, I think the public mentality, the sentiment has to change.
Okay, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. I've run completely out of time, but this is a major issue that we will continue to track because resident doctors find themselves in the line of fire, being beaten up by patients, relatives if things go wrong. Unacceptable. Maybe the government needs to look at conviction rates. Again, it comes not so much to legislation, but actual action on the legislation. Let's turn to our good news today story on the news today. Yes, there is a lot of good news that takes place across this great country. An attempt to cater to the deaf and hearing impaired. Indore police has now included sign language as part of the police training module. With over 1,000 cases concerning the hearing impaired lying unattended, this is an initiative to bridge the communication gap. Take a look.
Just because they cannot speak does not mean their voice shouldn't be heard. Keeping this in mind, the Indore police has for the first time made an attempt to listen to the deaf and hearing impaired. The police training college in Indore is giving sessions of sign language to its female trainee officers as a part of their curriculum. After training, these trainee officials will be posted in various police stations across Madhya Pradesh.
यहाँ पर हम लोग जो है साइन लैंग्वेज और मूक बधिर लोगों की और मंदबुद्धि बच्चों की क्या क्या मनोदशाएं होती हैं दिव्यांग बच्चों की, उसके बारे में इनको ओरिएंट कर रहे हैं ताकि इनके पास कोई भी ऐसा आता है तो उसकी बात को समझ सकें और उसकी मदद कर सकें.
According to reports, around 1,100 cases were registered related to the deaf and hearing impaired in the last decade, which included more than 300 cases of rape. Communication gap between the police and the victim has only prolonged the cases.
हमारे पास आने वाले हर व्यक्ति की सुनवाई हो, इस उद्देश्य से दिव्यांगों की भाषा समझने का एक प्रयास किया जा रहा है.
According to the trainers, it takes a lot of patience and time to learn the sign language. But the basics would surely enable the police to address concerns of the deaf and hearing impaired persons. Bureau Report, India Today.